think that's an X. I don't think this is.
Which one is?
That's an X for sure, yeah. Yeah.
Alright, what's going on, Brap Gang? I know it's been a little while, but I want to bring you guys this little review on the 900 Ace Turbo. I actually got to ride 2 different ones last season at the demo rides. I got to ride a Enduro Renegade and a Renegade X package. I unfortunately only got a couple seconds of footage of them. I had been standing there for like 40-45 minutes trying to get on one.
I think my
camera got too cold and my battery died. I didn't realize until afterwards. But regardless, I got a decent bit of seat time on them both, so I'll give you guys my thoughts. First things first, I think it's very important to be honest with yourself about what suspension you need for this sled. Whereas most people get too much suspension, like going for the XRS when they really only need an X package or in-season model. This sled, you will make the most of the suspension because of the added weight of the 4-stroke. I really found that the Enduro suffered a bit because it didn't have much adjustability and the shocks just aren't quite up to par with an X package. It does okay down long straight trails. It can take the occasional bump pretty well. Kind of the typical cruiser type aspect, you know, where you're going to be on longer rides and you might hit a rutted out, beat up trail for a few minutes and you'll just slow down to get through that trail. That's where the X package, in my opinion, is needed because it really can handle moguls and bumps a lot better. These were the 137-inch track, so they do bridge bumps a little bit better than a short track sled, just in general, as any 2-stroke, 4-stroke, any combination of sled would. I think that's a big help with these sleds. The Gen 4 chassis is, in my opinion, crucial to getting the most out of this engine. I think because of the way the side panels are designed and the way you can hook your legs in, you can really put more body language into the sled to get more performance out of what's a heavier platform in general, and it makes the sled a lot more enjoyable. I imagine that if this engine was in something like a Pro Cross chassis, like the Sidewinder, the 9000, it wouldn't be as fun. You really can't move yourself around that chassis the same way you can on a Skidoo, and I think it gives this a much more playful and performance feel on trail, whereas those sleds can kind of be more of like the lake racer style. So my thoughts on the engine. That's where this sled kind of surprised me. It's very much marketed as a 1200 replacement, and that's why Skidoo only gave it 150 horsepower, or so they say. In the Maverick side-by-side, this engine makes 170 horsepower, so it's essentially detuned a bit. The power delivery is a lot different, so I would say it can kind of almost be 2 different sleds in one. Down low, it does feel like a 600 in my opinion. It performs decently. I wouldn't say it's underpowered, but it's nothing to write home about. Upper part of the mid-range into the top end, very much like an 850. Feels like it can pull forever. It has the electric throttle on it, which I think aids in why it feels like it has endless power and it's just like a rocket ship on trail. When you pull that throttle, you don't get a lot of feedback from it and the sled is just going. It's not necessarily in a bad way, it's just a lot different than if you're going to be coming from a 2-stroke, so it's something to keep in mind. I think if you are coming from a 1200 and you're switching over to a 900 Ace, you're going to find that your riding style is going to change quite a bit, whereas the 1200 down low is going to have a lot of torque and a lot of power. This, I think, when you really want to go fast on a trail, you're going to need to be more in the mid-range and the upper part of the power. It does have 2 different modes. It has a normal mode and a sport mode. Ironically, when I was on the demo ride, the person that I swapped with to get under the X package model, he didn't have it in sport mode, which I think completely changes the sled. In normal mode, it's got much more of a power curve of a 1200 with, in my opinion, a little bit less power down low. And then in sport mode, it's very much like an 850 on top, but you really do feel the difference in power between when the turbos are spooling and when they're not. That's why I think if you're switching over to this platform, you're gonna change the way you ride to get the most out of the sled. If you liked your 1200 just because it was a 4-stroke, you like the reliability, but you really want to ride all out, you're going to be more often in the mid-range and in the upper part of the power. If you just like to cruise, you'll probably leave it in normal mode, and I think the sled will do very well for you in terms of that. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I think it just makes the sled a little bit more exciting and kind of just gives you a little bit of a variation in how you can ride it and enjoy it in general. Pricing wise, at the most performance oriented part of the line, you have the XRS 900 Turbo. Again, this is a Renegade, and that's going to cost you $15,200. Next up, you have the X Package, and the X Package is going to cost you $14,300. And we have the Enduro at $15,400. Finally, there's the Renegade Adrenaline, that's going to cost you $13,500. So I think best value, in my opinion, is probably the X Package. One of the biggest gripes I have with Gen 4 chassis sleds overall is that the rear suspension really does not get used much. It's a very front biased sled. I think depending on your riding style, that can be worse or better. If you do ride aggressively, you're going to be more up on the front of the sled, and in my opinion, these could basically at that point be like a hardtail chopper. You don't really need the rear suspension, and it's a shame. The R Motion is so highly touted in the industry, it just doesn't feel like you're going to use it at all. You can obviously move back and get the most out of it, but I think especially on the 4-stroke, when you're really trying to rail the corners, you're up more than ever on the front of the sled, and that's where you would want, in my opinion, the X or the XRS. My final only gripe with the sled is kind of a Gen 4 thing in general as well. They're very much more sitting biased than standing, in my opinion. I think out of all the sleds, this sled's affected the least by that. When you're on a 4-stroke, especially like this, you're going to probably be sitting more often than standing, so I don't think it's too big of a deal. And the stand-up ergonomics are by no means bad. They're just not as good as on some other sleds. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Overall, I like the looks a lot. It looks a lot like any other Gen 4, but they have the redesigned hood with the hood scoops on. It gives it a little bit more of a muscle car aggressive look, which I think is good. And it definitely sets the sled apart a little bit to show you the lake racer style. I think as far as how this fits into the marketplace, it's a really good option for somebody who wants a turbocharged 4-stroke but is going to be more trail biased. And if you're strictly the lake racer, that's where the Sidewinder and the 9000 kind of come in. The price difference is pretty steep. A 9000 RR compared to a 900 Turbo XRS, you're going to be paying $17,100 new for the 9000 RR, whereas you're going to be paying $15,200 for the XRS. And with a tune, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to get up to 170 horsepower, if not more, pretty easily. And I think we'll probably be seeing these sleds competing head-to-head in no time at all. On top of that, you can usually find Arctic Cats left over, so you can probably get a bit of a discount, which I think brings it a bit more back in line. So the big differentiating factor, in my opinion, is how playful they are on trail. The Procross chassis, I think, is a little bit heavier and a little bit more of a cruiser chassis, whereas I think the Gen 4 really allows you to move around more on the sled. And if you're a more physical rider who's going to be riding the sled more aggressively, I would say go with the Gen 4 900 Turbo. I think you'll have a lot more fun on it, in my opinion. So at the end here, you can see I ran into somebody who has a 600R, the brand new one that just came out. He had an 07 600 STI he was switching over to this from. Said he just picked it up and he loved it. You can kind of hear his opinions a little bit, but like I said, my mic was unplugged, so you can't quite hear him.
Are they turning people around? They let us through, but there's a huge line of sleds coming the other way, so I'm not sure. It seems like they're not letting them through anymore.
Yeah. Did you see what happened? He crashed? Somebody crashed?
Yeah, but it didn't even look like they hit anything. Like, their sled was off the trail and they were on the ground, but the sled didn't look banged up at all.
At least they didn't hit a tree.
Yeah, exactly. You just get that?
I just did, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm just dialing the suspension right now.
Yeah.
So I only went down a mile, turned around, because I had to adjust the limiter strap and shit.
Oh, okay.
And so I was just dialing in the suspension, and I didn't go down that far, so I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
But
is it? Is it pretty quick?
Pretty quick. I'm
Yeah.
impressed with it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
what I'm hearing.
600. It's not the, you know,
Yeah.
it's the 600R,
Yeah,
the new one.
that's awesome.
It's pretty quick. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I'm just trying to get the steering dialed in now.
Yeah.
Is it a 6?
Yeah, it's the new one. Skidoo just came out with it. It's like
It was a late release 2018.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's got an all new 600 engine in it.
Yep.
How fast?
Well, it's 120 horsepower. I only had it doing 90. I took it on the lakes. I'm still breaking it in.
I
Yes.
can only get this to 87.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just picked this one up. and
Not
it's,
today though, because today you need studs on that lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was all over the place.
That sled didn't look smashed, right? I didn't think it did.
No, but the guy came up to me. He goes, "Did you see the accident?" I go, "Yeah, we just went through it." He goes, "How'd it look?" I go, "Other than a body on the ground,
Yeah.
not that bad." He goes, "Oh, okay, thanks."
But like she was, I think it was a girl. She was like awake and moving and
Yeah,
stuff.
she was looking right at me when
Yeah.
I went by. But
I don't know.
I didn't see any smashed sleds
Yeah,
unless they were in the woods.
yeah, that's what I thought. Unless it went way into the woods,
Yeah.
but I didn't see anything. So
And then that big frickin'
yeah, that ATV thing.
holy shit! I almost hit it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that new rescue
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, that thing was flying down the
Yeah.
trail. I'm like, whoa!
I gave them
Then I slowed right down
the
after
signal,
that.
but they didn't. Yeah, they.
I think that came
Really excited for the up and coming season. Haven't heard too much on my 850, but the 850 Indies are being built, so that means the engines are in the factory. It can't be too much longer now. I'm expecting the beginning of November, hopefully, if not sometime in November. So keep an eye out for that. If anyone is looking for a 1.3-inch studded assault track, the new owner of my sled is selling one. Just get in contact with me in the comments and let me know if you are. Also, I'm going to be selling the orange C&A Pro skis that were on my old assault. I thought I had already had them sold, but the buyer backed out on them. So if anybody's interested in those as well, let me know down below. And we can talk about price and everything. And I hope you guys are excited for the up and coming season and can't wait to get back out there.